Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and the test server for Diablo 4's massive 2.0 overhaul patch, which is going to release with the expansion on October 8th, has gone live today, and here are my preliminary thoughts on it. We got a full video going over all the new stuff, all the changed stuff, but in short, no, there was no Spiritborn in this test, there is no campaign for the expansion. Basically, they're trying to hide the expansion content for us to test mostly. The revised 1 to 60 leveling, plus the Paragon system, the entire new difficulty system, the new itemization changes, and eventually the rune words as well. So I'm going to start by saying that overall my impression is very positive, but we're going to walk through things step by step here. So this is the new Vessel of Hatred loading screen. We're all green themed now because jungle. We're going to go to create new character so that we can show the maybe my one complaint. It's not just one, but it's a minor complaint, but it's gone. The campfire scene, the classic campfire scene, Diablo history being destroyed here, folks. No more campfire. This screen, super cool. I like the animations of the character classes, but if we could have found some way to combine this with the campfire, right? When you have all the characters lined up around the campfire, that'd be great. But again, not the end of the world. Just needed to point it out. So from there, let's hop into game and we'll go over the new difficulty modes and as well my experiences with them. So I got my character to level 60. That is the new max level. Afterwards, you get Paragon levels. And now you can change difficulty anywhere in game. So we start off with only a couple difficulty levels unlocked. So you have normal, you have hard, expert unlocks once you complete the prologue, which is like the first quest. So basically these are the three difficulties you have to start with. And expert, being the highest difficulty you have, isn't really that challenging. So I started off on hard because I expected expert to be too difficult. I think I swapped expert around level 20. Chat encouraged me to do so, and I was like, I'm telling you, I'm not going to be efficient on expert. I'm going to bump back down to hard, you'll see. And I swapped to expert, and I didn't go back. And I did not have any kind of real build synergy going on. It's not that I had any like really good legendary aspects to help me out. So expert, definitely not too much of a challenge. I'm expecting that we're going to be leveling on expert, and penitent only unlocks once you reach level 50. I didn't realize this when they gave the campfire chat, and I would encourage to allow penitent to be available from the start. Penitent, they had said, I believe, is the equivalent of current world tier 2 plus 45 monster levels. So should be a challenge, but then by the time I got to level 50 and I swapped to Penitent, again, I expected, oh man, I'm gonna hit a wall of difficulty, I'm gonna get crushed. Didn't happen. I comfortably stayed on Penitent. So, in my opinion, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, in my opinion, Penitent should be available for selection from level 1. Same with Expert, or unlock at the same time as Expert. Why? I think it's a good idea to have a difficulty mode that is difficult and not efficient. There are players, not me, but there are players that want to play the game on higher difficulty, on a game difficulty that is not efficient just for the challenge, and especially when we're talking about campaign players. Some people want to play the campaign and feel some actual difficulty, and Expert just isn't it. Expert is not delivering on that. And then again, by the time I got to Penitent, I was expecting it to be that kick in the face. It did not feel that way at all. Compared that to moving from World Tier 2 to World Tier 3, you get kicked in the face. It's a big change. Same thing, World Tier 3 to World Tier 4. None of these changes felt that significant. It made things feel smoother. I'm not going to argue with that. It felt smoother, but it didn't feel like a really huge, like, oh man, like, I got to go back and get ready before I'm prepared to take on this challenge, the way we would kind of feel when we would go World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. Now, let's explain a couple other things here. There's no season running. There's no season running, therefore we are starting with all of our Codex of Power unlocked. We have all of our everything unlocked, basically. We don't get to use our Paragon points until level 60, so at least there's not that. But we also have our temper recipes all unlocked. So I really wanted to test what is it going to feel like to level from 1 to 60 in a new season. So I did my best to kind of simulate that experience. I didn't use gems for a long time because I'm like, I don't know how many, gem fragments I'm going to have. I don't know if I could afford these gems. Like I have, 2 billion gold here, but on a fresh season, I won't. Same thing with temper recipes. I'm like, well, I'm not going to use all of my legendary temper recipes because it's just going to make the game silly easy. So I didn't use any temper recipes. I did 1 to 60 with 0 temper recipes. 0. Didn't use a single one ever. What I did do, however, I did use some aspects. So I started off with a barrage build, and so I just used the branching volleys aspect, which is something that you can farm deterministically in game via one of the dungeons. Now, I couldn't stop the one that I have from being rolled as high, right? You would unlock it at the lowest level. So I figure, okay, I'm getting a bit of an advantage via the aspects, but I'm making up for it by not using any tempers. I'm trying to simulate as best I can the 1 to 60 fresh season experience. After that, aspects that I would find, I would start to, if I found an aspect that was good for my build, then I would start to imprint it. I maybe imprinted more than I would normally be able to afford in a fresh season, so there is that. Overall though, difficulty aside, I enjoyed the experience. Don't get me wrong, it sounds like I'm complaining here. I really enjoyed the 1 to 60. It took me 7.5 hours, but that's 7.5 hours in which I was also reading chat, I was testing out different things, I was looking at the new skill tree, or the revised skill tree. I was analyzing and coming up with a build. The build that I'm running isn't some optimized build that I was following a guide. I started off following a barrage guide, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm loving Dance of Knives, this new skill. We'll get to that. I want to build around it, and so I've just made my own build. My own, slap together build, which I can talk through in a little bit here. Super fun, and again, I got to level 60, no issues, 7.5 hours. Solo play, in group play, you can do it a lot faster. There's currently arguably a Stronghold exploit that if you have a bunch of an army of devout followers who will line up strongholds for you non-stop, you can level up super fast. It's not a realistic situation. I don't know that it needs to actually be patched out, but regardless, obviously in group play, in optimized group play that's going to launch with the season, you can get to 60 in far less than 7.5 hours. So overall, I would compare the experience, because I think Season 5 has had the best 1 to 50, 1 to 60 experience yet. I would put this on par with, if not superior to that. So Capstone Dungeons are gone. I'm a little sad about that in that they were interesting, but now again, difficulty unlocks from hitting certain milestones, as in you finish the prologue, you reach level 50, and then the later difficulties here are going to be unlocked by reaching specific pit tiers. So that's going to be what I'm going to tackle next, is seeing the future experience, the post-60 experience. Unfortunately, I don't know how fast the leveling after 60 is going to be, because it's not a fresh season. We're starting off with 200 Paragon levels, so I don't know how fast those initial Paragon levels come in. We'll only figure out how long it's going to take to get the last 100 Paragon levels. Now, what was I doing during this entire journey from 1 to 60. First off, you can see Nahantu on the map now, so we can't go there yet, not in PTR. Sometimes I got a dungeon key actually to go there, and it didn't work. They got it locked down pretty good. But yeah, this is going to be Nahantu, so you can see the size of it, right? Relative to the other zones, it's a little bigger than the other zones, right? A little bit bigger. That's going to be the expansion zone. So we have Helltide from level 1. I did a lot of Helltide. Monsters now are always the same level. When you encounter monsters in game, they don't have a level anymore. Why? Because their level doesn't matter. They're scaled to you. The only thing that establishes their difficulty is going to be the difficulty that you are playing on. And yeah, the experience again, it felt smooth. As I was leveling up, yeah, the monsters would get harder, but then I would get an item upgrade, or I would get my build together a bit more. And it didn't suffer from that same issue that D4 had at launch, where I felt like I'm leveling up and getting weaker, because the monsters would also level up with us on game launch, right? And I didn't have the same issue. I didn't get that same feeling. I felt a continued progressive increase in power. My build was coming together more and more, and I think that's a big part of why the power was in the feeling of power kept going up. Getting more and more of this build online. Outside of that, the item drop rates felt good. I was getting what felt like meaningful upgrades often enough. I generally didn't care about affixes. I didn't really need to. In rare occasions, I held on to these... no, I didn't. I held on to this chest because it gave me +2 to Dark Shroud, as well as some energy per second, which helped with my build. So even though I found better chest pieces, I held on to those just for the affixes. But for the most part, it's kind of D3 style of, you know, green number go up. If it was a higher item power, I would swap to it, outside of holding on to some very specific aspects, legendary aspects that were good for my build. The loss of red gems, of rubies giving you life, was certainly felt. The number squish, look at my armor and my life. I'm level 60 with less than 1,000 life. I was level 50 with like 128 life. So I know a lot of people like having the smaller numbers. You definitely feel it. And if you have a current character and you log into the PTR, that character is now level 50 with 200 Paragon points. So you can gain another 10 levels to get to level 60. Between levels 50 and 60 is an enormous ramp in power. Again, I went from like 128 life, I think at level 50, to gaining, you know, almost 10 times that amount. So it's actually kind of crazy. I don't know that it's not a bad thing. At least it didn't feel like a bad thing, but I definitely noticed like all of a sudden, oh wow, like item upgrades are becoming really big. Oh wow, my life is increasing by a lot now. Oh wow, these item affixes are big chunky numbers. Like I have 200 life just on this bow, which that's more life than I even had 10 levels ago. So I imagine that was done so that we can take whatever our current characters are, even if they're fully maxed out. Like it's basically obsoleting all the gear that we currently have, which I had more issues with that back when Reaper of Souls released, you know, 10 years ago, but now that everyone basically plays seasonal, or at least I've swapped to playing seasonal, it doesn't bother me, but I could imagine if you are a non-seasonal character, realizing all of your gear is now, I'm going to say obsolete, but I'm going to clarify that in a moment. All your gear is now obsolete, might miff you a bit. So to clarify, what happens? If you log into an existing character, which we'll do right now to demonstrate, all of your 925 gear, everything is being now set to an item power of, I think it's 540. So as a level 50 character, the max item power is like 540, but then that item power rises rapidly between levels 50 and 60, such that by 60 you're getting like item power, you know, 700 items. So again, 540, even my Shaco is a 540. So all of your legacy gear that was 925 is getting yeeted down to 540. So it's good to farm where you are, right? It's you log in as a level 50 character, this is going to help you destroy content on your way to 60, but you're going to replace all of this. Eventually, you're not going to be retaining any of these gear pieces because you're going to want the newfangled 700 items. That doesn't bother me. If you play Eternal, that might bother you. But as we log back onto our rogue here, again, I really enjoyed my 1 to 60 experience, both with regards to the gearing, and these were things that I had big concerns about, right? It's like, oh, all of a sudden we're making big changes to the feeling of progression, and I think they did a great job. They've managed to make it feel just as good, if not even potentially better. Again, outside of the little hiccups of, you know, well, the difficulty maybe isn't as challenging as I had hoped, which also makes me fear that these subsequent difficulties will not be as challenging as I hope, because I hope that Torment 4 is not going to be a difficulty that people are going to be just crushing. I hope maybe just the top players are going to be able to live in T4, but that Torment 4 is going to be for people that are like masochists, like what Diablo 3 was Inferno mode at launch, right? Like no one can handle it. The problem with Inferno mode Diablo 3 at launch was that the best items were locked behind an Inferno. So players were forced, or they felt obligated to go into this difficulty that was just punishingly difficult for them in the hopes of getting a lucky drop, because you could not get the best items in lower difficulty. They've solved that in D4. Again, D4 is becoming improved D3. It's D3 the sequel, taking what was good from D3 and also taking the problems with D3 and fixing those problems, like the difficulty. So with Torment 1 giving you access to the same stuff that Torment 4 does, Torment 4 just gives you better drop rates, you can farm up everything you need on Torment 1, you don't need to live on Torment 4. So my hope is that the top players are going to find it most efficient to farm in Torment 3, and Torment 4 will be for the masochists that just want to play a difficult game. People that, you know, enjoy a challenge, rather than just blitzing fast, efficient gameplay. Now we're going to go back to our skill tree here, and we're going to point out, so every class gets one new skill, maybe a couple new passive skills, but what's most interesting to highlight is the new interstitial connections between passives. Look at how I can path through this. Normally, to get Siphoning Strikes, you would have to take Sturdy. Now, if you take either Twisting Blades or Flurry, you can go straight there. And there's tons of these connections in different ways that allow you to path through your skill tree in different ways. I really like this change. I think it's a good addition to add a bit more depth to the skill tree, which everyone wants more depth to the skill tree, without making it overwhelming for new players, right? It's just giving you more options. You can see the Paragon board. There's some visual differences here. Things look a bit better. Again, we're not diving into that. I'll have more feedback on the post-60 experience in my Saturday video. But let me talk you through my build here a bit, which I don't believe is going to be a... certainly not a best-in-slot build. I'm sure there's a lot of room for improvement here, but I love Dance of Knives. This is the new rogue power. This is the spin to win rogue power, in fact. And so I started off as a barrage rogue, and what I realized was if I could actually work in Dance of Knives and drop a generator. So I am a triple imbue, that's the thing as well. Every class gets a new key passive. So I want to try the new key passive, which is all about combining 3 elements. So because of that, I worked in triple imbue. So I'm a triple imbue alchemical admixture barrage Dance of Knives build. And I think Dance of Knives is such a fun power. It doesn't have a lot of supporting legendaries. I think there's just one supporting legendary for the time being, in fact. Oh, well, that's not the way I want to go at all. In fact, as you go back to town here, we'll show you that you can now set your town portal location. You can favorite any town by just right-clicking on the waypoint. You see it says favorite, unfavorite. We're going to put this back to Karagar, aka the best town ever. And also, if you go to the stable, everyone has a couple new free mounts. If you look right here, you go to the vendor, we get 2 quote-unquote free cat mounts that you can purchase via gold. And there's supposed to be a whole lot more beyond that. But just to show off the new power, which again is tons of fun. It does not cost any resource. It is a channeled skill. It is the spin to win rogue. And you can't just channel it forever. It is consuming charges of some kind. You can see I'm down to 2 stacks, down to 1, but now I just regained 3 because if you travel a certain distance, and now it just ran out. But I kept it going for quite a while. I believe with cooldown reduction, you can probably improve that even further. Now, this isn't my this isn't actually my damage dealer. My damage dealer is Barrage, plus the overpowered Blood Boiling, which absolutely slaps at low level. But I just love how fun Dance of Knives is. I'm not sure that it's enough to carry a build. Again, I don't know that you can build up enough synergies to make it a de facto damage dealer, but rather than using a rogue generator, which normally at low level you would have to do, this is the skill that I've been using, and I'm allowing it to actually help me generate energy. I'm using my Dance of Knives in order to trigger my Shadow Imbue. And with Shadow Imbue, I'm combining that with Consuming Shadows, which now you don't need to take Shadow Crash for. Combine that with Consuming Shadows. Each time you kill an enemy with shadow damage, you generate 10 energy. I use Shadow Imbue with my Dance of Knives, and note that it's remaining in Shadow Imbue. As long as I'm holding down the channel, all of my attacks remain Shadow Imbued. It's only when I release and then channel again that it finishes consuming the Shadow Imbue. So I'm using the Shadow Imbue for the spin to win, and then when I get out of that for Barrage, I'm using my other 2 imbues. Those are the bigger single target imbues, whereas Shadow Imbue has always been the better area damage imbue. And by using these 3, I'm benefiting from my Keystone passive, which gives me big buffs, and that's all to help with the single target damage. Of course, I'm using Inner Sight in order to have infinite energy, which is scaling with my barrier generation, and that's why I have barrier gems. Since I can't have life anymore, I'm using barrier gems rather. That's one thing that I don't love the change, but I don't know that there's something better for the time being to do. So with rubies no longer giving max life, now you're basically either putting in your main stat for more damage, or I guess barrier is really the only option. If you're not a build who can really benefit from barrier, the gem choice is basically just you use your main stat gem and that's it, and we're back to D3 in that regard. So I don't love what gems are doing in body armor and sockets, but I guess ultimately we're going to be rolling with rune words, right? 2 of these 3 item slots will have rune words in them. We could only have 2 rune words, with a third one being a couple gems, so it's not the end of the world, but still would be nice to have something more interesting going on there. I still do enjoy the gems inside the jewelry sockets. They help us finish up our little puzzle, our armor and resistance puzzle. In Season 5 live server, that puzzle is beyond solved, which is problematic because it means you can max out your armor, you can max out your resist, and then you have nothing to do with these sockets anymore. I don't think this will be a problem now with Diablo 4 2.0 because if you look at these difficulties here, the higher you go, your armor and resistances are reduced. So eventually, I suspect, yes, we will absolutely need to use these to fill our armor and resistances. Another thing you might have noticed right here, this little button, we can access the wardrobe now directly from our character. So while you're waiting for the world boss, you can be changing your outfit. Great change. Instead of having to walk all the way there. Also means that when you forget to equip your pet, you can just go right here and equip it. You'll notice that the tombstone and town portal customization is not here anymore. I'm guessing that's just an error. I'm sure it's going to come back. We have new hair options, by the way. I'm sure every class, this one we've had, but that's new. That's not new. This is new. That's new. That's new, right? So a bunch of new hairstyles, right? We also have new dyes beyond the new ones that were added last week. There's a couple new ones. I'm not sure exactly. I've lost track of which are the absolute new ones, but Fireglass here, Sunset, Royal Mariner, Canopy, Sunrise might have been one of the other ones that was already added. Coral we've had, that one I remember. Cinder, right? So we're getting new tints. Also, if you access your map, you go to social, actually, you have the party finder here. So you can do find a party or you can list a party. You can either search the pit or any, I guess. And you can sort by activity. I presume once Infernal Hordes is available, that'll be there. I presume once we get Kurast Undercity, that'll be there. I presume once we get the raid, that'll be there. But you can select your activity. Difficulty range, it only shows what you have unlocked so far. Expansion, you can choose to play either with just base game people, just Vessel of Hatred, or both. And then you can set different labels. So it's my first time playing. I'm doing leveling. I want to be a meta group. Type of social options. Newcomers welcome. Guidance desired. Quiet preferred. Mic optional, right? There's lots of ways to customize this. And then even gameplay, right? Quick clear, farming, blasting, exploration, pushing, carry requests, right? People that want to be carried, right? You can put that. Same class preferred. So I think we actually have a lot of options in this party finder. It's far more robust than I expected, and I think /hope might be a good way to actually result in good grouping experiences and avoid poorer grouping experiences. Now, obviously, some people are going to lie, right? Some people are going to still want to get carried, and so they're going to lie about their thing in order to get into groups that are going to carry them. It's always going to be the case, but what I really like about this compared to other kind of party finders I've found in the past is they seem to be based on how we play the game as opposed to how the game is intended to be played, or basically all of these tags, they seem informed by, you know, not just a hypothetical, you know, dev like who doesn't play their game kind of thing, but someone who actually understands and does play this kind of game in groups, in pubs, and knows what to expect and knows what people are looking for or not looking for in order to filter things in different ways. So I think this is a good job with the party finder. Oh, something else you folks may have noticed. Let me see here. If I go back into the Helltide, did you notice that there's something off about the color of Helltide? I'm in Helltide right now, and yet my screen isn't a giant mess of red. So while it was always cool when Helltide was this when Helltide was this zone that is like all infested with hell and all red as a stark contrast to the rest of the world, I think the devs realized, well, we're never anywhere else other than Helltide. So when the only place we're in is always red, it kind of makes the red less special. It still feels kind of different, right? It's like darker and more ominous. But there've been a lot of complaints of the amount of red in this game. And you have like red enemies on red backgrounds with red danger effects, and it's just red on red on red and red, and it becomes difficult to read, right? Readability suffers, so I think this was done in the interest of improving readability. Now, outside of Helltide, another difference is that Nightmare Dungeons are available from the start. I did a couple, and I didn't feel them worth doing, but more data needs to be collected there. So Nightmare Dungeons no longer have levels. You get a key, it's for the dungeon, that's it. You can open it on whatever difficulty, it will scale to the difficulty, and it felt as though the difficulty inside the Nightmare Dungeon was higher than the difficulty inside Helltide. So overall, my clear speed seemed to slow down enough to not justify doing the Nightmare Dungeon. Could be that I just wasn't on a good build, could be that it would be more efficient in a party, who knows, again, more data needed, but my initial impression was, I'm not going to bother with Nightmare Dungeons, I'm going to stick in Helltide. It's more rewarding overall, more random players, easier, more drops, Hell Maiden, all that stuff, Blood Maiden. Currently, there's no Infernal Hordes. They will be in the game, they're just not on the test server for whatever reason, so it's hard to see how those are going to match up, but one thing that's going to be a thing, Stronghold leveling. Now, leveling was very fast, but it started to slow down, especially getting close to level, let's say around level 40. So you have like something like 25 strongholds in the game. What I realized was at low level, completing a stronghold gives you 2 levels. Doesn't matter what level you are, doesn't matter what difficulty you're playing on, you get 2 levels for completing a stronghold. This starts to taper off around level 40, where you start to get only 1 level instead, but still, you complete that stronghold, that's a big jump. So my advice for leveling would be hold off on strongholds until you're around level, let's say 35-ish, and then level up the rest of the way via strongholds. Again, you're going to get 2 levels every time until about level 40, and then 1 level every time. And that's going to be the new fast leveling mode unless they change it, and I like that they did that. Strongholds are some of the best content in this game. I think doing them each once a season is a good idea. They're fun, they're challenging, they're interesting, and as long as we don't have to do them 7 times a week, they remain fresh and exciting, right? You do these once a season. I like where they have landed right now. So Stronghold leveling will be new meta. Now, to return to what I was alluding to earlier, the gimmick leveling right now is once you've completed a stronghold, it's done, right? In your world instance, I cannot go back and complete these strongholds I've already completed. They're all done. But if you didn't complete your stronghold, I can join your game and complete your stronghold and then get the level up. So if you could have people invite you to a stronghold that they are running, and then you go in and you run the stronghold, or they just invite you at the end of the stronghold, and you click on the bell at the end, you complete the stronghold, you get the 2 levels. And if they leave the game before you complete their stronghold doesn't get completed for them. So you get the XP, and then they can run that same stronghold again with you over and over. Here's the thing though, this isn't an exploit because then they're not leveling up, right? This only works as a method to carry one person. So I don't think this is going to be something that's going to be game breaking. It's going to affect streamers, right? Streamers racing for world first level, max level, that's what's going to affect, because they're going to be able to call upon their communities to set up, 20 runs for them. But average gamer person is not going to be affected by this, or at least they're not going to be being able to abuse of this. Now, in fairness, it should probably be stopped so that even, streamers can't do it, because it's not fair that streamers should get to level 60 in 20 minutes and average Joe cannot, because he cannot convince 10 people to sacrifice themselves for him. I just really hope that this is fixed in such a way that it does not remove Stronghold leveling, because for average gamers, Stronghold leveling is so cool. This is a great addition to the game. I hope it stays. So, again, to wrap up here, I know I've gone on for a while. Initial impressions are very positive. I encourage you folks to sound off in the comments with your impressions. And I'll have more to say once I experience the post-60, the Torment experience. I'm going to take a bit more time to experience that. But, again, folks, we're going to thank you for watching. Special thanks to my supporters. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.